87% of realtors get into the business and get out of the business in 2 years. That doesn't exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
If you are a realtor looking to get into the business, we have a blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us. Let's talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it. Welcome back, Sales Beast listeners. We're here today with a dear friend and colleague, mentor, Sheena Thompson. I'm so excited to welcome you on the podcast today. Sheena, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Anna and Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to getting to know you better.
Awesome. So Sheena, tell us just a little bit about you and your business for anyone that's listening. I think you have a very impactful story and we're going to be diving deep into it, but let us know what you've been doing recently.
Well, okay, to start, I actually started this business because I met a realtor who kind of scared me into purchasing a property. And I decided I didn't really want to go into a transaction this big without, having the proper support. And that's kind of how I became a realtor. So we can thank that realtor. He's actually still working. I know who he is, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know. And that's kind of the thing that started this whole thing. And to be honest, it's been a ride. And where I am now, after helping as many clients as I've had and kind of discovering the holes that we have in our industry, it led me to create the Black Realtors Association of Canada. And now it's kind of opened up another area of real estate that I'm really looking forward to exploring.
That's very exciting. Can you, for anyone listening, can you share what is the Black Realtors Association?
That again started with an experience with another realtor. Actually started with my experience with a client I was really trying to help. This was a tenant and he was looking for property and we were having a lot of doors kind of slammed in our face. And it was obvious what the reason was. And I wondered, how many people had this experience, but there really was no one for me to reach out to because at that time, I didn't know a lot of Black realtors in the industry. And I met one, and I actually didn't know he was Black at the time, but he actually helped me through this transaction. And I wondered after having this conversation with him, why he was so attuned to what was going on. And it turns out, obviously, he had the same experience. So when I met him, I asked him about himself and about his business. Turns out he had been in the business 20 years, and I was just there. And this was early in my real estate years, staring at him like, how are you in this business 20 years and I have not known you? I think now looking back, 20 years it's just not that much. But at my second year, this man has been in the business 20 years. That's like, oh my God, that's forever. That's forever. And I found it weird that we didn't know each other, that I didn't see his name anywhere, and I asked myself, if I have these questions, do other Black realtors have these questions? Are there other situations that I have not encountered yet that maybe they have the answers to? And it was kind of at that moment, I realized that we really needed to connect and, know what's going on with each other, with each other's business, and to see how we can support each other. And the one, I'm actually surprised it didn't exist already. And two, when I started reaching out, I realized that there was a need, and I found that I started having conversations with all of these realtors, and I just discovered a heap of talent that I just didn't know was there. And to be honest, it kind of propelled me to have more of these conversations. And I'll tell you a little bit of the conversations I've been having this past month. In January, I spoke to a realtor who opened up a brokerage with another realtor in, I think it's 74. I'm actually going to post this in February. But two Black men came together and opened up what is probably the first Black-owned brokerage in Durham. And nobody knows who they are, right? So stories like these, and to think that I started this business 8 years ago, and I don't know who these people are, right? I felt a little bit sad and a little bit lost. There's a history there that we missed. And I think it's useful for the young people who are considering coming into real estate, know that there were people there in front of you who did really well, and you can do well too. That was a very long answer, but I hope you understood what I'm saying. Yeah.
That was a great answer.
There's so much. So much has happened. Even this morning, I spoke to a realtor who has his own brokerage, and I'm very excited for him because he has been in the business 14 years. 14 years, and he decided, I think it was 8 years ago, to start his own thing, and he's doing quite well. And I just drilled him. Why? How? Who are you working with? Like, I need to know all these questions. I'm so nosy. I will be very surprised if anyone joins this organization and I don't know something about them. Right.
I love that. And that's a big part of who you are. And obviously in working with you, I see how you are not only there to create a community, but you're there to connect people. And obviously that doesn't just show up in your personal, professional life, but it also shows up, with your clients and your business. So can you talk a little bit about how you're cultivating relationships and like what that means to you, really?
So, oh my God, there are many ways I could take this. One, I spoke a little bit about the youth and just them having this experience and knowing that one, residential is an option, but commercial is an option as well. Anna knows recently I connected one of our commercial agents with a newer agent from B.R.A.C. He was considering a commercial, but he didn't know who to contact. Right, making those kinds of connections early I think is really important. But also between the realtors themselves. Just recently, one of the commercial realtors connected with a realtor in our organization to help list a property in London. So these connections are now possible before they really weren't. And in my business and in my life, really, if I have the resource, and I think most realtors are like this, but if you have the resource that can help someone and make their life a little bit easier, why wouldn't you share it? Right. And that's one of the reasons why I really appreciate being in Keller Williams Legacies, is because I see that sort of corporation between realtors and I really respect it. I think that there's room for us to all be successful, and you define your own success in real estate and anything really. Right. And my success, I think, is through people, through helping people get the experience out of life that they want. Right. Did that answer your question?
100%. It's so true. Again, so for those that don't know, Sheena's on our agent leadership council. So she was elected within like a couple days. She already had her committee set up, and she's already been creating some amazing opportunities for our brokerage and for our agents, obviously to better their lives and their business. So what she's saying isn't just BS, but it's actually facts. It's how she operates on all levels.
Yeah. And I think honestly, too, when people feel that they're seen and that they're heard, I think they just open up, and you need to really allow people to be themselves, once. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge in really any industry. And Anna, I really appreciate you for being the kind of leader that you are, because once you've discovered yourself, I think the limits are boundless.
I have a question.
I'm listening.
Yeah. So I look back on, you got in the business 6 years ago. I got in 4.5 years ago. I don't know what your road was like in the beginning, but mine was hell. Like terrifying. I am glad I never need to go through that again.
It was interesting. My road was interesting because I still am actually very interested in servicing not my clients, not just getting them the property or getting them what they want, but really understanding what it is that they want from this move that they're trying to make. And I think honestly, this kind of hurts me because in real estate, it's kind of about numbers. You really can't or you shouldn't maybe do a lot of hand holding. And because of my experience, my early experience with that one realtor that kind of drove me into this business, I wanted to make sure that my clients did not have that experience. So with the clients that I have now, they're very loyal. My retention rate is really high. I can count on one hand the people who choose to walk away from me, and they'll tell me why. They'll actually come and they'll say, in fact, the last person to do that, she said, "Hey, Sheena, we're going to buy another property, and my mother is helping us, and she wants us to use our realtor or her realtor." So that's really the only kind of like, we can't use you anymore. It's not because we don't want to, it's because money's coming from elsewhere. I don't really get, you did a horrible job. Oh my God. I get more calls like, "Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're my realtor. This thing happened." And I also get the like, "I'm really scared. We don't know what to do. Family saying this." And you, again, just help people be themselves, make decisions for themselves. And then the business came. For me, it came naturally because I guess people liked working with me.
Yeah. So I guess my follow-up question to that is, when you got into the business, were there any challenges you may have had to go through that I would have never had to experience being a white male in Canada?
As a Black realtor, I think really my significant challenge when I started was kind of questions that I don't think you would ask yourself, like, should I put my face on my business card? That was one of the things that I encountered really early. And when I met the first Black realtor in the industry, we were doing a deal together. Her name is Angela Carty. I had asked her outright. I'm like, and she said, I don't know if I should say her name. You might have to blur that out. I don't know if I should tell her business like that. So
we'll edit it out. I'll tell Mel.
Thank you. No, but she said, so this realtor, she said to me, "No, I don't put my face on my business card." When she started, she said, "No way," because I cold call, and when I call and show up at the door, they think on the phone, they think I'm a white person, but then I get to the door and they see my face. She said some of them slam the door in her face, but some of them, because she's already there, they're like, "Okay, all right, come in," right? But they're always, she's like, they're always very surprised. So I had questions like that, and I couldn't think of going to my manager to ask these questions, because how would he be able to respond to that? And I even remember another one of my manager, this is not a Black thing, but this is a woman thing. And I asked, this man came up to me and he asked for my contact for my business card, but I felt, fishy about it. I'm like, I don't think he's looking for business. And I went to my manager and I said, "Hey, what do you think? Like, what should I do with this? I'm not sure." And he said, "Follow every lead." And now that I think back at it, being seasoned, I wouldn't have followed that lead, because one, I felt unsafe as a woman. And I think we need to make that decision. I mean, you have to make that decision for yourself. But at that time, it was not a good idea. And I think I actually he lost I can't remember, but I didn't get in contact with this person, and I'm grateful for it. But again, now I look back and I'm like, that was not the right call to make. It wasn't. How would he know though? So that was one thing. But also, I think as a realtor coming in this business and not really knowing any other Black realtors, the biggest thing I thought was, can I be successful in this business? Where are the other successful Black realtors? Right? So that had to do mostly with like self-doubt, right? Which is something that obviously I can handle and most people can get over. But the point is, it's there. And I think a lot of new realtors, they have this too, right? But how do you overcome that? In the skin that you're in, how do you overcome it? How do you tell people that you feel a certain way about these things? They'll probably tell you to get over it, or you do what I do and you fake it till you make it, right? but not everyone is like me. And that's a good thing. And overthink things, it's a good thing. But I came into this business and I did it very carefully. And I asked a lot of questions, and I'm glad that I did. And to be honest, when I look back now and I think about the people who kind of discouraged me, I'm kind of disappointed in them, right? And it teaches me, though, to listen to what people have to say, right? And, give them the opportunity to explore, the industry themselves. I get a lot of people who are considering, a lot of Black women, actually, young women, who are considering getting into this industry. And I give them my full account of, what happened, what happens, how it goes. I don't want them to, be scared, but I also don't want to make them think that it's what they see on TV. So make it realistic as possible, and then let them know that they can do it. Of course they can do it. And now they also have the support, right? And they have the people who they can look at and say, hey, this person did it, therefore I can do it too.
For sure.
Right.
I mean, you're creating role models that people can obviously look to, which maybe you didn't have yourself at the beginning. But what I was going to also ask you around that, which I think you kind of answered, but I guess part of B.R.A.C is like helping educate the next generation of Black realtors coming into the industry, such that maybe there's safety protocols in place or different ways that they can avoid, experiencing certain things. Would you be able to touch on, what strategies or different things that you're supporting your B.R.A.C members with? Because I know you're like at 350 members now or more.
I think we're at 374 so this morning. And on Monday, we're going to start a campaign to grow. Right now, a lot of the base is in Ontario, and we're looking at making sure we pull in the East and West Coast. We have a few sprinkling over the prairies, but really, no, we could do a lot better. But in terms of how we help support the new realtors coming in. We have one agent who just posted today about recruiting for his team, and that's really exciting. This is an opportunity for people who really don't know what's going on to really be a part of it. And again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in terms of those connections. So many of those happen. And the only sad part of the association right now is that I don't know how many of these connections are being made, but there's so many opportunities. And just before we did that lockdown, the third lockdown or fourth lockdown, I don't remember which number we're on. But just before that lockdown, we had the opportunity of doing a second meeting. And at that second meeting, we had a couple of new realtors, come out. And just by coming out, they were able to make connections to get them some leads on properties. All you have to do is show up, right? As a new agent. That's kind of what we're saying. Just show up, be present, let the seniors know that you're here, right? And another thing too, there's some brokerage changes that's happening between the realtors, people who are choosing to work together. And I think a lot of those are for the new agents. But in the long run, I mean, yes, we're doing this networking and we're doing all these, meetings. But I think in the long run, I'd love to see something directed specifically to, new agents, some programs, I'm not sure what yet, but now that the board is established, we're kind of, organizing ourselves so that we can start having those discussions. Right now, our focus is one on growth, making sure our mission and vision is clear and in line with what we want for the organization. And one of the big things that we're working on right now is making sure that we're more visible. So we've started a directory that we're building. So this is, again, why growth is important.
Could you maybe touch on some of the barriers that exist within our industry that maybe lead Black people in Canada to make the decision not to get in the industry? When I look around, I don't see a lot of Black people in real estate. And me and Anna have talked about this before. Why is that?
For me personally, it was just not knowing that the opportunity was there. So I remember when, it's interesting, when I left school. I was an instructor therapist, and I was working out my whole life, really. I was working in something like community service. That was a very big part of my life, even in school. So it was a natural thing to do. And if I went to my mother, if I went to my father, if I went to my aunts, or uncles, everyone was in a very sort of typical industry of let's say Black people. There's no such thing, but let's say any stereotype you can think of, this was my family. So where would we begin to have this conversation? It has to be introduced somehow. And one of the things that I can say that I like about myself is that I'm very curious, which is why I stalk people and ask them all these questions. And it's actually paid off. I meet people, I see that they're, living a different type of life, and I'm curious as to how and why. So I ask a lot of questions. And the reason why I even ended up considering real estate, I did a pro-con list. I don't remember what else was on that list, but real estate was one of them. And one of my friends, Jennifer, her mother was a realtor, and she decided that she wanted to, do it as well. But she hated it. She hated it. She's like, this is not for me. This is dog eat dog. And she's very calm. She's very zen. She's like, this is too much. It's too stressful. So I went to her and I just asked questions. I said, hey, why this? Why did you choose that? And then after my experience with, that realtor, it came together. It came together. So my point is, we have to have that space, that connection, that person who's going to say, hey, this thing is here, consider this thing. You don't only have these other options, you have this, right? And to be honest, when it comes to school, and this is another thing I've considered, this is why one of the things I want to do with B.R.A.C is I want to have a scholarship. It's not, real estate is not one of those things they push in school. How would you know if you're not introduced to it, if you don't have someone kind of putting it in your face? We're fortunate now to have, I think, social media, right? And in the way that everything is kind of accessible, I think there are more opportunities to see these other options for occupations. But I still think young people they need something more tangible. And that would be us. That would be B.R.A.C.
Thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask you, like, as I'm a person of color, but in a different way, like I'm Latina. So for non-Black people, obviously we don't necessarily experience the different biases that you're experiencing, but how can white people, non-Black people support an organization like B.R.A.C or just support people that are Black in our industry in general?
Okay. Education is really important. Can you guys see me? Sorry about that. Yep. My screen went out.
Yeah.
Education is really important. And here's the thing. I think, this is a heavy topic because people get very defensive really quickly. They think that, when you say things like Black Lives Matter, it automatically means that your life, whatever you are, doesn't matter. They don't understand. And also, I think people feel hurt by it because the first thing they say is like, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. And I think that kind of stops, learning. And the other thing is, I don't think people need to learn to forgive themselves for past mistakes. Regardless of whether the world forgives you or not, you are the one that needs to grow. And you need to be able to acknowledge that something you did yesterday is wrong. And today you're going to make an effort to not make that mistake again. So it's actually a personal, it's personal growth, and it's a personal undertaking to really address the issues that we're dealing with right now. And you really have to understand yourself well, and you have to be willing to make that change. And I don't think, like, I can't, you will make the decisions that you make. I'm not going to judge you for them, but the reason why B.R.A.C exists is not so that I can change you. It's because I recognize that there's a problem. And instead of trying to convince you that there's a problem, I'm going to find solutions for the people who are having that problem, right? Because while you're having your internal turmoil, there are other people who just, they're getting left behind. And that's not okay. Did that answer your question?
100%. There's a lot of ignorance in this world, and all we can do is just become more educated. That's what it all comes down to. I agree with you 100%.
That's right. And again, forgive yourself, because yes, there are things that I thought was right yesterday that is not right today. And I have no other, for myself anyway, I have no other choice but to learn and grow. That's it. And you can say, like, I'll use Justin Trudeau, for example. A lot of people will throw stones at me for this, but he, did something like blackface many years ago when he was in his whatever age that was. That came up again. We know why it came up, right? Election, people wanted to throw him under the bus. Fine, right? But seriously, is he that person now? I don't know. I don't know Justin Trudeau like that. I did meet him, but we didn't have those discussions. Yeah, but is he that person now? Does he understand why what he did was wrong? That's only Justin Trudeau can answer that question, right? You know your situation right now. When you come across something that happens, you have to ask those kinds of questions. Why was this wrong? Why does she think this is wrong? And then you have to say, okay, is there something that I'm missing? So for people who still say things like all lives matter, I used to have conversations with them, but now I don't. Like, I can't keep having these conversations. The information is out there. If you really want to learn, you will, right? You'll go out and you'll find those answers yourself, because none of these conversations are new. And I think it's really sad that we're still having them. And this is not just, with George Floyd, it's pre-George Floyd. These conversations existed. It's just, is it important enough for you to do something about it?
One thing I always think about this industry, like, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. You could be white, green, purple, black, blue. Doesn't matter. Like, it is what you make it when you get in the job. Yeah. And it sounds like my background's similar to yours. I didn't know that this opportunity existed until Danny McKay tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, why don't you do this? Is there a way through your organization that you can reach out to more people, or is that something you're doing just to let them know that this phenomenal opportunity exists?
Yeah, so right now, literally what I had to do in the beginning was contact each realtor. When I say I was stalking realtors, I really do mean it. I was like, hello, hi, how are you? Here's my contact number. You can reach us here. But I think now with the groups that we have and people are kind of understanding what we're all about, it's growing naturally, but still it does need to be, we need to draw in some more people. And my focus, honestly, and this was before January, my focus really was making sure that we were all on the same page first and then grow, right? Because I want to know, just like KW, you want to bring in that culture. I want to make sure the culture is okay so people understand that we're here for corporation, we're here for sharing, we're here for, growing together in a way that makes sense for us and our community, right? All of those things are so important before we go out there and say, hey, we're here. This is what we're doing. And to be honest, I was having this conversation today with my partner. My plan for B.R.A.C is so big that, to be honest, it's kind of terrifying for me, right? It is, because I'm like, do I have the kind of support? Am I leading these people in the direction that, we should be going in? And that one really good thing about that now is that I'm not making this decision by myself, and I have input from the board, but I also have input from the members, and I want to actually engage them even more about, helping me with, making these decisions, because I think whatever direction we choose to go in, it has to be us doing it together. It can't just be me, because it's not for me. It's not just for me. I'm one person in this whole organization. It has to be for us, and it has to make sense for our community.
So can you share that vision? Because I want to help you get there. And I'm sure anyone listening that wants to be part of B.R.A.C should definitely get involved and be in touch with you.
There are a few things. I don't think I should share it now, only because I haven't given the board all of my ideas yet. And if I'm to say this now, I think it'll be a little bit of a betrayal.
Well, what about in terms of growth? Like, where do you see B.R.A.C? Like, you guys have been around for 2 years, 3 years?
So in the way that we started, essentially, I actually focused only on the GT. I'm like, okay, all right, let's just see who's here. And then it just kind of, it had to expand just in the way that we were, it had to expand. So B.R.A.C itself as an organization, I've been calling it that for at least a year and a half now. Mm-hmm. But it's about 3 years old. Mm-hmm. The idea of what we were started about 3 years ago. Sorry, what was the second part of your question, Anna?
I was just saying, you don't have to share all the details of your vision, but where do you want to be in terms of growth? Like, how many members do you want to have by the end of 2022?
So in terms of members, I'm not looking at numbers, because really there's no way to find out definitively how many Black Realtors there are in Canada. We don't have numbers like that. But ideally, I know we're there. We're definitely there. But I'd like to have at least, 1 or 2 Realtors across all of our territory and provinces. I don't think that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to find, but I find it would be impossible. Maybe none of it. We don't have one, right? But we must. Black people are everywhere. So I can't imagine there not being one Black Realtor. And if in the 70s we can have 2 Realtors who owned a brokerage, come on, they must be there. So really, my focus when I say growth is making sure that we're represented across Canada and not just in Ontario. That's one thing. The other thing is I want to make it really clear to the people who are already in our organization what our aim is. I think they've got the networking. They know that. And that's obviously one of the big things. That's why we got together, in the first place. But I also want them to know that we're going to be more than just a group of networking, of people who network. Right. I want us to actually have tangible assets outside of the organization. And I want us to bring people into the organization. When I say people, I mean like our community. So what does that look like? It could be a form of education, or it could be a form of really just doing what Realtors do. And that's putting them in the right place so they can make purchases that make sense for them and their families, or, investment. What's the word? Partners.
Amazing. Any other questions on your end, Mike? I think I got what I wanted out of this. I just wanted to give you a platform, Sheena. You're doing amazing, amazing things. And if you want to be involved in B.R.A.C, we're going to put Sheena's contact info, or we'll figure out how to get it in our description box down below. Mike, any other questions on your end?
I think you've answered a lot of them. What would you say is the number one benefit for a Black Realtor that gets involved with B.R.A.C?
Really, it's the connections that you'll make. And I think, to be honest, as Black Realtors, we do want to know each other. We're like, okay, yeah, honestly, like I said, I've had so many amazing conversations. I have met people that I don't think I would have ever known had I just, continued the business solo as I had been. And the fact that they're there gives me, real hope as to what I can use, what I can do in this business. So, just again, that we can have these conversations, that we're so open about them, right? And you would definitely benefit from that 100%. And if you're not there, I have to question myself, why are you not there? Mm-hmm. It's rare that we have this opportunity to be so open about our experiences And the one thing that I do have to say is that our experiences vary. Like I mentioned, the other realtor that door knocked and had those kinds of experience, I haven't had those experiences. No one has slammed a door in my face, right? So it's important to know that our experiences overall will be very different. In fact, from Vancouver to Halifax, our experiences are definitely not going to be the same.
Yeah. I have one more question.
Go for it.
With a bit of a backstory. So I'm from the East Coast originally. Yeah. Hamilton, fortunately, I didn't know this when I came here.
Did you say Hamilton, unfortunately? What's unfortunate?
Hamilton, fortunately, has a ton of East Coasters. So when I go on a listing appointment, the first thing I tell them is I'm from Halifax. Because I know there's like a 50% chance they're from Halifax too. It's probably 10% of my business is just moving people home from Hamilton.
Really?
I say it because I know the second I find out that they're also from out there, the business is mine. I've never not signed a listing with an East Coaster. Have you noticed a source of competitive advantage as a result of your unique background?
I wish I could say that, but this is the thing too. This is why I'm telling you that we're very different. My background and the people that I work with, it's actually very mixed. Yeah. Right. And I think growing up in Etobicoke, as I did, and going to St. Marcellus and Michael Power, can you believe I forgot my high school? I had the opportunity to, kind of live and be friends with many different, type of people. So I've never really been sectioned off and catering to one person. And when you care about people, like they're just people, you forget about what they are, where they're from. And I think having that kind of background helped my business, right? But the other thing too, it made me be a little bit more detailed oriented with my clients, because that meant their needs were completely different. Like I remember having one client who was just terrified of leaving her family because her families in, her community, they stay together. They don't separate. So for her, it was a really big deal. And she needed like hand holding for that. And then there's also when I work with people who are in the gay community and I have to deal with, like, let's say a landlord who, is not okay with that. I have to kind of tailor my words when I, speak to this landlord or this realtor so that they don't ask me questions that they shouldn't be asking anyway. Do you know what I mean? So, just having a variety of people that I work with kind of made me a stronger, more aware realtor. Does that answer your question? Yeah,
it does.
So I can't say that I have this one thing. There isn't just one thing. I work with pretty much everyone.
Awesome. So Anna, you have any other questions?
Are you going to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Go for it.
With the question, we ask everyone this question: who do you know that we should have on this podcast?
Oh, actually, I don't know if you've had him already, but Sir Colin. Have you had Sir Colin on?
We haven't.
I don't know what.
He's been busy. I think he's been ignoring us. No, I'm just joking. We'll definitely get him on. I'm actually seeing him next week. So that's
you should definitely have him on. Sir Colin is the reason I actually came to KW, and I sat down with him and I said, he wanted to, he was saying, come to this brokerage. I was like, listen, Sir Colin, I understand brokerages now. And unless I'm just bigging you up right now, Anna. I said, unless a brokerage can show me that they care about more than just me, bringing in money, that they care about my goals, because at that time I realized that I needed to make B.R.A.C more than it was. I'm like, I can't change. And after speaking with Anna, and Anna remembers, I don't know if she remembers, at that time, I was just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I really was. I was basically sleeping in my car servicing clients. And then she said, have you read the MREA? And I was like, no. I'm like, this is that book that everybody's been talking about. I'm like, no. I'm like, you're telling me to read a book? I tell you I'm sleeping in my car. And then she said, what is it? Leads, leverage. What did you say? The three. There we go. And then she's like, it sounds like you need leverage. I'm like, what are you talking about? And that's how I started having this conversation. But yeah, Sir Colin led me to you, led me to here. And to be honest, I have to say thank you again, because Anna, you really just based on those instructions, helped me take time and kind of clarify what my needs are in this industry and how I could service not just my own business, but B.R.A.C. So I really appreciate you for that. And definitely 100% thanks, Sir Collins, for, putting me in this direction. And I wouldn't have met him if it wasn't for B.R.A.C. I wouldn't have known who he was. Yeah.
Big cycle. Well, I'm so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished, and I'm so grateful to be in business with you. So thank you for devoting your time today for our Black History Month episode. It's going to be popping up soon. And again, you can find Sheena's contact information in the description box if you want to get involved with B.R.A.C. or hear more about it. Again, Sheena, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.